In the depths of winter's embrace, where silence reigns supreme across a forgotten landscape of endless white, Jack's cabin stands as a solitary beacon against nature's frozen canvas. The night outside is merciless, a symphony of howling winds and biting frost that seeps through the sturdiest of walls. Yet inside, the weathered man finds solace in isolation, a companion to his own measured breaths and the crackling hearth. Then, piercing through the winter's harsh lullaby, comes a sound so faint it might be dismissed as imagination's whisper. A plaintive cry, barely distinguishable from the wind's mournful song. Jack pauses, his weathered hand suspended mid-motion as he listens, uncertainty etched across his face. Years in this remote outpost have taught him to trust his instincts, but tonight, something feels different. The sound comes again, more distinct now, a fragile thread of life calling out against the vast indifference of the storm. No longer can he convince himself it's merely the wind playing tricks. This is something real, something desperate, a kitten's cry, unmistakable in its innocence and urgency, reaching through the darkness to find him. Driven by a curiosity that overrides caution, Jack bundles himself against the night's fierce breath and steps into a world transformed by moonlight and snow. His boots crunch through the pristine surface as he follows the increasingly frantic meows, each step bringing him closer to the source of this midnight mystery. And there, almost invisible against the snow's brilliance, lies a miracle of resilience. A tiny kitten, its fur dusted with crystals of ice, trembling violently against the cold's relentless assault. Its eyes, startling blue against the whiteness, lock with Jack's, conveying a wordless plea that transcends the barrier between species. Time seems suspended as man and creature regard each other, two souls connected by circumstance in this vast wilderness. The kitten's fragile body, so small it could fit in his palm, continues its desperate fight against the elements, each labored breath creating tiny clouds in the frigid air. In this moment, Jack understands with perfect clarity that some encounters are not chance, but destiny, that in this forgotten corner of the world, something extraordinary has been set in motion, beginning with a cry in the cold and a man who chose to listen. In the unforgiving embrace of winter's fury, Jack stands transfixed, his breath forming ghostly clouds that dissipate into the midnight air. The tiny creature before him lies half-submerged in nature's cold blanket, a fragile heartbeat fighting against impossible odds. The kitten's delicate form trembles with diminishing strength, each shudder growing weaker as precious warmth escapes its tiny body. Snow crystals cling to its matted fur like silent predators, while moonlight catches in its barely open eyes, a fading sparkle of life against the vast indifference of the wilderness. For a moment that stretches into eternity, Jack hesitates. His weathered face, illuminated by the moon's silver glow, reveals the inner conflict waging within. Was this tiny soul abandoned by its mother, or perhaps separated by some cruel twist of fate? His experienced eyes scan the pristine expanse surrounding them, searching for tracks, for any sign of a mother cat returning for her offspring. But the freshly fallen snow holds no secrets, no promises of reunion, only the unspoken certainty that without intervention, this tiny life will slip away before dawn breaks across the horizon. The wind howls with renewed vengeance, as if challenging his resolve, driving ice particles against his face like miniature daggers. In this frozen theater of survival, time itself seems suspended on the edge of a decision. The kitten's desperate meow, now barely audible, cuts through Jack's contemplation, a sound so filled with innocence and need that it resonates deep within his chest, awakening something long dormant. With a decision born of compassion rather than calculation, Jack removes his thick glove. His calloused hand, warm with human life, reaches down with unexpected gentleness. The kitten feels weightless as he scoops it from its snowy grave, a fragile bundle of fur and fading warmth nestled against his palm. He tucks the tiny creature inside his coat, close to his heartbeat, offering the first sanctuary this abandoned soul has known, in what must have felt like an eternity of cold. As Jack turns toward his cabin, cradling his precious cargo, something shifts in the universe between them. This is no longer just a rescue. It is the beginning of a journey neither could have anticipated, a testament to how even in the most desolate corners of existence, compassion can bloom like an impossible flower through winter's hardened ground. Within the sanctuary of Jack's humble cabin, time hangs suspended like the ice crystals outside his frost-covered windows. The flickering firelight dances across rough-hewn walls as he cradles the barely breathing bundle in hands that have known hardship but never such delicate responsibility. The contrast is striking, this mountain of a man weathered by years of solitude, now hunched over in concentration as he tends to a creature that weighs less than his morning coffee. With movements belying his rugged exterior, Jack wraps the tiny kitten in layers of soft flannel, creating a cocoon of warmth against the death that had nearly claimed her. Her fragile body, still crusted with melting snow, disappears beneath the fabric until only her face remains visible. Eyes closed, whiskers frosted, each shallow breath hanging by a thread that seems ready to snap at any moment. Minutes stretch into an hour as Jack sits motionless beside the fire, the bundle cradled close to his chest. He whispers words long unused, a gentle stream of encouragement that sounds foreign even to his own ears. The cabin, once a testament to his isolation, now bears witness to this unexpected communion between man and nature's most vulnerable offering. Then, so subtle he nearly misses it, a vibration against his palm. The kitten's body begins to respond to the warmth, her trembling taking on a different quality. No longer the violent shudders of hypothermia, but something miraculous emerging from the brink of death. A purr, impossibly faint yet unmistakable, rises from the blankets like the first birdsong after winter's longest night. Hope flickers to life in Jack's eyes as he carefully prepares a mixture of warmed milk and soft food. With a gentleness that would astonish those who know only his hardened exterior, he offers a droplet to the kitten's parched mouth. Her pink tongue darts out, a momentary victory, but exhaustion claims her quickly. She manages just a taste before her head lowers, strength depleted by even this small effort. In the glow of the fire, Jack watches each labored breath, each flutter of her translucent eyelids. Tomorrow remains uncertain, the night ahead a battlefield where this tiny life will fight its greatest war. Yet something has already been transformed in this remote cabin, something beyond the physical rescue of a stray kitten. For in saving her, Jack has unwittingly opened a door long sealed within himself, where compassion still lives, untouched by the isolation that had become his only companion. As dawn breaks over the snow-laden forest, casting amber hues across Jack's isolated cabin, a subtle shift begins to unfold between man and kitten. 3 days have passed since that fateful rescue. 3 days of tender vigilance, of spoon-fed nourishment, of whispered encouragements when hope seemed fragile. Now, as warmth returns to the tiny creature's body and strength flows back into her limbs, something unexpected emerges from the shadows of recovery. The kitten, whom Jack has not yet named, fearing attachment to something so precariously balanced between life and death, rises on unsteady legs. Her transformation is remarkable, eyes now bright and alert where once they had been dimming portals to the beyond. Yet with this renewal comes a behavior Jack cannot decipher, a restlessness that contradicts her still fragile state. Her gaze, piercing in its intensity, fixes repeatedly on the cabin door. Each time the wind howls outside, she responds with urgent meows, not of fear, but of something far more complex. Her tiny body trembles not from weakness, but from what appears to be anxious anticipation, her ears perpetually angled toward the world beyond their sanctuary. "What is it, little one?" Jack murmurs, watching as she paces despite her lingering frailty, her cries growing more insistent with each passing hour. She scratches at the weathered door, looking back at him with eyes that seem to hold an ancient wisdom, a desperate message he cannot translate. In the quietude of his cabin, Jack feels something shift within his understanding. The narrative he had constructed, of a lone kitten abandoned to the elements, begins to unravel thread by thread. Her behavior speaks of connection, of something left behind in that merciless snowstorm. Her calls are not random, they are summoning, pleading, directing. As night falls once more across the frozen landscape, Jack finds himself standing at his window, the kitten cradled against his chest, both gazing out into the darkness. The moonlight illuminates the undisturbed snow, beautiful and deadly in its perfect stillness. The question forms in his mind with crystalline clarity, undeniable in its implication. What if she was not alone? What if, somewhere out there in the unforgiving cold, another life hangs in the balance, waiting for a rescue that may never come? The kitten meows once more, her eyes meeting his with an intelligence that transcends her tiny form. And in that moment, Jack knows with absolute certainty, Her story has only begun to unfold. The first light of dawn paints the snow-covered world in hues of lavender and gold as Jack stands at the threshold of his cabin, the rescued kitten cradled in the crook of his arm. Her persistent cries throughout the night have awakened something primal within him, an understanding that transcends words, a connection forged in the crucible of survival. With determination etched across his weathered features, he makes a decision that defies logic yet feels inexplicably right. Bundled against the biting cold, Jack places the kitten gently inside his coat, her tiny head peeking out, alert and focused. Her eyes, now bright with renewed life, scan the vast white expanse with unmistakable purpose. The storm has passed, leaving behind a world transformed, pristine, silent, and holding secrets beneath its glittering surface. "Show me," he whispers, his breath crystallizing in the frigid air as he takes his first steps away from safety. The tracks are almost imperceptible, delicate impressions in the snow that would be invisible to an untrained eye. But Jack, a man who has lived in harmony with this unforgiving wilderness for decades, sees what others would miss. Tiny paw prints, partially obscured by fresh snowfall, creating a fragile trail that leads away from his cabin and toward the dense forest that stands like a wall of shadows against the horizon. With each step, the kitten's demeanor changes, her body vibrating with anticipation, her meows growing more insistent as if encouraging him forward. The trail weaves between towering pines, their branches heavy with snow that occasionally falls in soft cascades around them. Twice the delicate trail nearly disappears, and Jack kneels, studying the ground with the intensity of a man reading a message written in a language only half understood. As they venture deeper into the silent forest, far beyond the safety of his familiar surroundings, an inexplicable sense of urgency builds within Jack's chest. The morning light filters through the canopy in ethereal beams, illuminating particles of ice suspended in the air like frozen stars. Something about this journey feels predestined, as if the universe itself had orchestrated their meeting for this very purpose. The kitten stares ahead with unwavering focus, and Jack follows her gaze into the heart of the wilderness. Something awaits them, something significant enough to drive this tiny creature to fight for survival against impossible odds. With each labored step through the deepening snow, Jack becomes increasingly certain that they are moving toward a revelation that will forever alter the quiet rhythm of his solitary existence. The forest grows denser as Jack follows the nearly invisible trail, each step sinking deeper into the pristine snow. Overhead, the ancient pines stand sentinel, their boughs heavy with winter's burden, creaking softly in the gentle wind like whispered conversations between ancient guardians. The little kitten inside his coat has grown increasingly agitated, her tiny body trembling not from cold, but from what Jack now recognizes as anticipation, as if she can sense they're approaching something of profound importance. Suddenly, she lets out a cry unlike any he's heard before, urgent, demanding, almost triumphant. Jack stops abruptly, his experienced eyes scanning the seemingly featureless landscape. There, just ahead, a subtle abnormality in the perfect blanket of white catches his attention. A slight mound where the snow has drifted against what appears to be a natural depression in the earth. With cautious steps, Jack approaches what reveals itself to be a small burrow, partially concealed beneath a fallen log, and now almost entirely buried beneath the relentless accumulation of snow. The kitten's reaction is immediate and unmistakable. She struggles against his gentle hold, her eyes fixed on this unremarkable spot with an intensity that speaks volumes. Then, cutting through the forest's solemn quiet, comes a sound so faint it might be dismissed as imagination. A rustling, a whisper of movement from within the snow-covered sanctuary. Jack's heart quickens as realization dawns. Something is alive inside. Something has survived against impossible odds. With renewed purpose, he kneels before the mound, the rescued kitten watching intently as his gloved hands begin carefully excavating the snow, revealing the narrow entrance to a natural hollow beneath the fallen log. The cold bites at his exposed skin as he works, but a growing sense of urgency drives him forward. As the last barrier of snow is cleared away, a gasp escapes his lips, a sound of wonder that hangs crystallized in the frigid air. There, huddled together in a desperate embrace of shared warmth, lie two more kittens, miniature mirrors of his rescued companion. Their tiny bodies are intertwined so completely, they appear as one being with multiple heartbeats, their breath shallow but present, defying the death that has stalked them through days of merciless cold. In this moment of discovery, as sunlight breaks through the canopy to illuminate the scene in ethereal light, Jack understands the full magnitude of what has occurred. Not just a random rescue on a winter night, but the first chapter in an extraordinary tale of feline determination and the mysterious bonds that connect all living beings in ways beyond human comprehension. In the hollow silence of the forest, Jack's discovery transforms into urgent clarity. These two tiny lives hang by the thinnest of threads. Unlike their sister, whose spirit had somehow sustained her through the impossible cold, these kittens lie motionless save for the almost imperceptible rise and fall of their diminutive chests. Their eyes remain sealed, their limbs limp and cold to the touch. Nature's merciless countdown ticks louder with each passing second. With hands that have weathered countless storms yet never performed a task so delicate, Jack gently lifts the intertwined forms. They weigh almost nothing, 2 heartbeats wrapped in fur, so fragile he fears they might shatter in his grasp. The first kitten watches intently from inside his coat, her piercing gaze fixed on her siblings as if willing her own newfound strength into their failing bodies. "Hold on, little ones," Jack whispers, his voice rough with emotion as he unwraps his own scarf, a sacrifice to the cold, and creates a makeshift nest for the pair. The warmth of his fingers lingers momentarily in the fabric as he tucks them securely within its folds. Above, the sky has transformed. What was clear morning light now darkens ominously as clouds gather with supernatural speed. The wind shifts, carrying the unmistakable scent of approaching snow. Jack's experienced eyes scan the heavens, reading nature's warnings with the fluency of one who has survived decades in this unforgiving wilderness. Another storm approaches, fiercer than the last, and their narrow window of escape shrinks with each passing moment. Clutching his precious cargo against his chest, Jack turns toward home. What was a cautious journey outward becomes a desperate race against both elements and time. His boots crash through the deepening snow, each labored step carrying him over fallen logs and through dense underbrush that claws at his clothing like spectral hands trying to delay his mission. The first snowflakes begin to fall, not gentle harbingers, but aggressive forerunners of the tempest to come. They swirl around him with increasing fury, obscuring the path he so carefully followed. The temperature plummets with unnatural speed, and Jack feels the cold seeping through his layers despite his exertion. The cabin, his sanctuary, their only hope, seems impossibly distant as the forest transforms into a white labyrinth around them. Jack presses the tiny bundle closer, feeling their faint heartbeats against his own thundering pulse. In this moment, nothing exists beyond this singular purpose, these lives entrusted to him by forces he cannot comprehend, but instinctively respects. The storm descends in earnest, but Jack moves forward with unwavering determination, becoming a force of nature himself in defiance of winter's cruelest intentions. The cabin door slams shut against winter's fury with a finality that severs the howling chaos outside from the sacred mission unfolding within. Jack moves with purposeful urgency, his movements precise despite fingers numbed by cold and exertion. The fireplace, kept alive during his absence by embers too stubborn to die, welcomes his attention, flaring to renewed brilliance as he adds carefully selected logs with trembling hands. Beneath the golden glow that now bathes the humble room, Jack creates a sanctuary of warmth, blankets arranged in concentric circles radiating outward from the hearth's life-giving heat. With reverence befitting the most precious of treasures, he unwraps the nearly lifeless bundles, placing them in this nest of salvation. Their tiny bodies, still intertwined as if separation might end them both, barely register the transition from deathly cold to tentative warmth. The first kitten, the survivor, the guide, the miracle, watches from her perch on Jack's shoulder, her eyes reflecting the dancing flames with an intelligence that transcends her diminutive form. As Jack settles her alongside her siblings, something extraordinary unfolds. Without hesitation, she positions herself between their fragile bodies and the outer world, her slightly stronger frame creating a living shield around them. "You knew," Jack whispers, his voice catching on emotions long dormant until this week. "You knew all along." Time suspends as Jack prepares a mixture of warmed milk and nutrients, a elixir of life offered with the steady hand of someone who suddenly finds himself responsible for 3 miracles. Dipping a clean cloth into the mixture, he gently squeezes drops of nourishment onto unresponsive tongues, his weathered face tense with concentration. The first feeding brings no response, nor does the second. Yet Jack persists with the patience of mountains, rewarded eventually by the faintest reflexive swallow. Through the night, Jack maintains his vigil, alternating between warming their bodies and offering sustenance. The strongest kitten, now a partner in this desperate endeavor, cleans her siblings with rough tongue and gentle persistence, stimulating circulation through bodies that had nearly surrendered to winter's embrace. She purrs continuously, a healing vibration that seems to penetrate the very air around them. In moments of stillness between feedings, Jack witnesses the extraordinary communication between these siblings, how the stronger one curls protectively around the weaker, how she nuzzles their faces when their breathing falters, how she seems to transfer her own hard-won vitality through physical contact alone. Dawn breaks unseen behind snow-obscured windows, but within the cabin, a different kind of light grows, the unmistakable illumination of life choosing to continue against all odds, of second chances emerging from the ashes of certain doom. In the gentle embrace of morning light filtering through frost-covered windows, Jack's cabin becomes a sanctuary of quiet determination. 3 days have passed since the miraculous rescue, 3 days of round-the-clock feedings, of anxious monitoring, of whispered encouragements when tiny bodies seemed ready to surrender. But against all odds, life persists. The weakest kittens now open their eyes, their movements growing stronger with each passing hour, while their brave sister watches over them with unwavering vigilance. The crackle of static breaks the reverent silence as Jack's seldom-used radio connects to the outside world. Dr. Sarah, the veteran veterinarian whose practice lies in the distant town below the mountain, listens intently as Jack describes his unexpected guests and the extraordinary circumstances of their discovery. Her voice, warm with decades of experience, fills the cabin with newfound understanding. Born to a stray, most likely, she explains, as Jack watches the trio huddle together on his worn blanket. This cold snap came suddenly. The mother may have been hunting, or perhaps scared off by predators. Sometimes they can't find their way back, especially in a storm of that magnitude. Jack's gaze falls upon the first kitten, the survivor, the guide, as clarity dawns across his weathered features. "She came looking for help," he whispers, more to himself than to the radio. "She found me." "And thank goodness she did," Dr. Sarah responds, her voice tinged with wonder. "What she did defies conventional understanding. Most kittens that young would simply perish in such conditions. For her to leave shelter, to travel through a blizzard, to somehow lead you back." She pauses, searching for words adequate to describe such extraordinary behavior. It speaks to something profound in these creatures we share our world with. The silence that follows holds the weight of revelation, broken only by the soft purring of the kittens as they nurse from the bottles Jack has fashioned from supplies in his modest cabin. "Do they have a chance?" Jack finally asks, his voice betraying emotions long dormant until this unlikely family entered his life. "With continued care, yes," comes the assured response. "Their survival so far suggests a remarkable resilience. Keep them warm, keep feeding them every few hours. Their strongest advocate is already with them, both you and their remarkable sister." As darkness settles once more across the snow-covered landscape, Jack sits beside the sleeping kittens, watching their synchronized breathing with newfound appreciation. The puzzle pieces have fallen into place, revealing a picture more extraordinary than he could have imagined. A tale of instinct and intelligence, of desperate hope and unimaginable courage, all contained within the tiny form of a kitten who refused to surrender to fate. Outside, the winter stars emerge from parting clouds, silent witnesses to the miracle unfolding within these humble walls. As winter's grip slowly loosens across the mountain landscape, another transformation unfolds within Jack's once solitary cabin. What began in desperate survival has blossomed into something profoundly beautiful. A rebirth not only for the 3 tiny creatures who defied death's embrace, but for the man who found himself unexpectedly at the center of their miracle. 2 weeks have passed since that fateful snowstorm, 14 days marked by countless feedings, sleepless nights, and moments of breathtaking tenderness. The change in the kittens is nothing short of extraordinary. Where once lay barely breathing bundles of fragile fur now tumble 3 vibrant spirits, their bodies strong and movements confident as they explore every corner of their newfound kingdom. The cabin, once a testament to isolation, echoes with the patter of tiny paws and spontaneous bursts of playful energy. The brave first kitten, whom Jack has named Scout for her remarkable courage, leads her siblings in daring expeditions across the living room floor. Behind her follow Shadow and Spark, their once dim eyes now bright with curiosity and mischief as they pounce on imaginary prey and wrestle with abandon. Jack watches from his armchair, a cup of steaming coffee forgotten in his weathered hands. The smile that crosses his face seems to erase years of solitude, softening the lines etched by countless winters spent in his own company. Something has awakened within him, something he thought had been buried beneath years of chosen isolation and careful emotional distance. When the radio crackles with Dr. Sarah's voice asking about bringing the kittens to town once the road's clear, Jack's answer comes without hesitation, surprising even himself with its certainty. "They're home," he says simply, his voice steady with conviction. "This is where they belong." As twilight paints the snow-covered world in hues of lavender and gold, Jack sits beside the fireplace, his routine forever altered. The kittens, exhausted from their day's adventures, have formed a perfect circle of intertwined bodies on his lap, 3 heartbeats synchronized in peaceful slumber. Scout's head rests protectively over her siblings, even in sleep maintaining her role as guardian. Outside, stars emerge one by one across the vast canvas of night, bearing witness to the extraordinary journey that brought these souls together. Jack gently strokes each tiny head, marveling at how the universe works in ways beyond human understanding, how in saving these abandoned creatures, he himself has been rescued from a loneliness he hadn't recognized until it was gone. In this perfect moment of connection, as firelight dances across the scene of contentment, one truth becomes abundantly clear. Sometimes family finds us in the most unexpected ways, and salvation comes on the smallest of paws.